What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Project Potter. Welcome back to On Your Left, episode 5, guys. We're rocking the cap shirt again. There's only one more episode after this. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Kyle, your host. We're reviewing the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, kind of the Marvel miniseries here. This is the second to last episode, guys. A really strong one, I think. And yeah, we're doing a recap and we're doing a score. That's pretty much it, but you're just going to get my thoughts on it. So without further ado, guys, here we go. Okay, guys, so episode 5. So if you remember last time, we ended with the shocking ending of episode 4, which was like one of the craziest MCU moments probably in the history of the MCU. With John Walker, spoilers, with John Walker killing the terrorist that did not kill his best friend, Lamar. It was actually Carly, and she runs away, and it's just like the right-hand man smashing his head violently with the shield, the cap shield stained in blood. And that's kind of right in front of a whole bunch of people, and that's kind of right where we kick off, where John is running, and he's like, it opens up and he's like running towards a warehouse, and he's like trying to shake off the memories because he sees like flashing and the bloody hand, and he like obviously is having trouble dealing with it. And he runs to a warehouse, and Bucky and Falcon are like, John, it's over, man, you got to give us the shield. And he's like, no, he's like, you know, I had to do that. He's like, I had to kill him. And they're like, dude, you're like, you do not sound good right now. And so they're like, just give me the shield. Like, you know, it's over. But they're like, you know, with your record, maybe if you just tell them, you know, the circumstances, they'll reconsider, or they might give you like a pass. And he's like, no. He's like, this is my shield. And then we get a fight between John Walker, Falcon, and Bucky. And it's pretty good, honestly. You know, John Walker he's gone off the deep end, dude. And there's like multiple points in the fight where he tries to kill Falcon and Bucky, where he's literally like just going out of anger and he's raising the shield up, and Falcon has to like move around with the shield, with the arms. He eventually, like, after there's back and forth, I'm not going to go step by step through the fight, but he throws Bucky into like an electrical field or whatever, and it like disables his arm. And like, yeah, John is like throwing the shield, and Bucky like goes through, or it might have been Falcon, he like goes through like a tractor or whatever, or against the wall. And I mean, John is out to kill both of them, dude. Like, he doesn't know when to stop. And so there's a brutal fight, and there's punches thrown and everything. Eventually Falcon and Bucky, it takes like all of their strength and Sam's jetpack to finally get the shield off, and they like knock Cap out, or knock John Walker out. So they finally have the shield, but you know, there's like so many shots back to the blood on the shield, and Sam is like, Bucky drops it off with them, and like Sam is just like so sad to see it. And I think Anthony Mackie's performance in this episode was like easily his best work in the MCU. He was phenomenal in this episode. So you know, basically John's got some injuries, and they come and they say like, you know, John Walker, you're under arrest or whatever, and they come and get him. We then go see eventually John Walker's like sitting in front of the podium in front of it's not Congress, I don't even know who, it's just like the government, whatever. And they're like, John, given your actions, like we are disbanding you as Captain America. And he's like, you will no longer be part of the US military or work for the US government. And he's like, you will have a less than honorable discharge. And he's like, I don't think you understand the circumstances. He's like, no, we do understand the circumstances. And then John gets mad and he starts slamming his fist on the podium. And everyone's kind of like afraid. And it's like, he's just unhinged, like you can tell. And so they're like, John, this is what's happening. Don't fight it, whatever. And they're like, I don't think you understand the mandate. And he's like, the mandate is what I live my life by. He's like, all of your mandates. He's like, that's what I lived by and I served for you. And he's like, and now you're taking that all away from me. And he's got, you know, kind of a point there, but obviously John took the power too far, so he's got to suffer for his actions there. You know, he killed unjustly, even though it was a terrorist. He had some trouble, and so he kind of storms out of the courtroom. Anthony Mackie goes to see, or Sam, I should say, he goes to see Isaiah Bradley again, the black super soldier that we found out about in episode 2, I think it was. So he goes back to Baltimore and he goes to talk to him. And Isaiah kind of told him to get out last time, but he sits down with him. He brings the shield in like a case, and he's like, you have to understand, man, like the world is not ready for a black Captain America. And it's crazy that he says that out loud. And he's like, I just want to understand what went wrong. And so they have this heart-to-heart conversation. where he's like, yeah, you know, our world is different, all these things. Again, kind of touching on the Black Lives Matters stuff again. And so, you know, he says, like, they gave us the serum. He's like, they didn't tell us what it was for. They told us it was like a tetanus shot. And he's like, some of them died from it, and then like it worked for me. But they just sent us out on missions. And he's like, they didn't tell us what it was for, or what it was doing, or anything. And so he's like, then they found out it's working for me. So he's like, they started experimenting me for 30 years. And he's like, that's how I got this. And he like pulls up a shirt. He's got like a nasty scar. And I don't know if I just missed it, but I don't know how he ended up in jail for 30 years. But basically, he talks about how like they just used him. And, you know, he's like, Sam says like, you know, you could have been the next, and he was going to say Captain America. And he's like, the next what? He's like, oh no. He's like, blonde hair, blue eyes. He's like, that wasn't me. And that's when he says, like, the world was not ready for a black Captain America. And he's like, even if they were ready, he's like, no self-respecting black man would take up that role. And Anthony's looking at him like, it's really cool though. It's like a heart-to-heart. You know, they're like sitting around here. The music is excellent throughout this whole episode. We do get a quick shot of Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Veep and from Seinfeld, of course. She comes in and she talks to John Walker. She's like an attorney or something, and she's like, well, you know, the thing is, she's like, the shield actually doesn't belong to the government. It's like a legal gray area, which is interesting. And so she's like, oh, you know, here's my card, and she's like, I'll be in touch. And there's like nothing on the card. He's like, what? There's nothing on there. So I'm sure there's a bigger role for that, but it's just a quick scene. It's so good to see her in this. But then Bucky and Sam kind of go back, or Sam is on like a mission, basically searching for a soul, where he goes back to the boat. So he finds out that, you know, they have the shield, but the government's taking over, and because of like, you know, everything that's been going on, they're like, hey, like, you guys gotta lay low for a bit. Like, we're taking care of John, and like, you know, Zemo's out there, and we'll figure that out. But the flag smashers, basically, they're like, we're gonna track down Carly. So Sam is like, okay, we can't do anything right now. He's like, I guess we'll just chill out for a bit. So then he calls Sarah, and he's like, Sarah, I'm coming home. And so then he goes back home, and he's like, I'm gonna fix this damn boat. And so he works on it pretty much the rest of the episode there. Eventually Bucky does come to meet him. And like, again, the music is so good this throughout. And, you know, Bucky is going to help him out, and they were going to work on like the water pump and stuff, and she's like, I didn't tell you, I knew it wasn't the water pump. She's like, I don't tell you how to barrel roll. So she's like, don't be coming here messing with my boat. And he's like, wow, okay. And they like walk away. There's a great back and forth with Sam and Bucky, where they're actually like getting along. And he's eventually like, yo, I'm gonna get a hotel. He's like, there's a funny bit where like the pipes are bursting with air or whatever, and he's going to do it, and he's like, no, he's like, you gotta turn it up. And Bucky comes over and does it. He's like, why didn't you use the metal arm? And he's like, I don't always think of it right away. He's like, I'm right-handed. And it's like, that's a good little bit. But Bucky's like, yo, I'm gonna get a hotel, and I'll like, you know, I'll head out in the morning or whatever. And he's like, no, man. He's like, you just stay here. He's like, these are the nicest people in the world. He's like, it doesn't matter if you wear small shirts or have a metal arm or whatever. And it's a fun back and forth. And we remember in the first or the second episode, remember like Bucky and Sam like hated each other. Like there was this animosity, but now they're really coming together, and kind of they've been through some stuff together. So it's nice to see them kind of like mold that relationship. Bucky like sees the kids playing with the shield, and then we get like one of the coolest scenes in the MCU, where it's Bucky and Sam, and they're taking the shield, and this was from the trailer like way long ago, where the scene opens and the shield goes into the tree, and it's got that awesome like vibranium sound, that shield every time. And so Sam is throwing it, and he's like, sometimes they set up like these pads around each tree, so it's totally bouncing off of the trees, and he's like catching it back. But sometimes he throws it and it goes over to Bucky, so they spend time like saying one thing, throwing it, and then like Sam will catch it. Bucky says like, you know, part of Winter Soldier is still in my head, which like is no good, even though we thought he was free. So I was a little confused why that was still in there. But he's like, you know what, Bucky, you want some tough love. He's like, you gotta stop listening to what other people say about you. He's like, you gotta stop asking other people who you are. He's like, you gotta figure that out for yourself. And Bucky's like, oh, okay. And he's like, Steve is the closest thing I had to family. So he's like, now that Steve's gone, he's like, I have this little book, but he's like, the shield is like the last thing I have for family. So he's like, when you turned in the shield, it felt like I had nothing left. And it's like, man, it's crazy. They talk about how they're like, yeah, we're coworkers, we're mutual friends, or we're two guys, coworkers, and they're like walking around, and they're like, well, we have a mutual friend, but the mutual friend is gone, so now we're just guys. And I love their dynamic throughout this whole episode, really. All the stuff fixing the boat was great. But basically, Sam tells Bucky, like, hey man, those people in that notebook, he's like, they weren't able to get closure, but he's like, I bet you can give them some closure. And he's like, if there's at least one person there that needs closure. And he's like, probably about 12. And so Bucky kind of goes off. They literally sees them going in different directions, where like there's a few shots of Sam like holding the shield. He looks sick with it. And then Bucky goes off, and like he's got the notebook, and I guess that's like his mission now. So I think this is like Bucky's exit for the series, which was kind of weird, I guess. But I don't really know what he's doing. But maybe we'll have a Bucky TV show later. I don't know. But basically, it sounds like he's going to do his thing, and maybe he'll come back later. But I don't think he's going to show up for the finale. So I think that's it for Bucky, which would be kind of a letdown considering his involvement so far. But we do. I totally skipped over it, but there we go, guys. That's what the show is. Every single review I do, I always forget something out of order. The Wakandans do come for Zemo, because Zemo actually goes to Sokovia, and that's where Bucky shows up. And there's a really awesome scene because Bucky goes to shoot him, and then he pulls the trigger and it's empty, and then he's got all the bullets in his hand, and he drops the bullet slowly, which I think is reminiscent to Age of Ultron at the end. I think with what Black Panther did, I'm not entirely sure, but I know that was a callback of some sorts. The Wakandans come for him, and Zemo is given into the Wakandans, and they're like, hey, we're going to bring him to the raft or whatever, so he'll live out the rest of his days there. And they're like, White Wolf, I think it's best you stay away from Wakanda for a little bit. And he's like, no problem at all. So Zemo is going to Wakanda, or the raft, and that's kind of what happened to him. So kind of disappointing for his story too. Like, feels like these are kind of just, I don't know, being thrown together. Nonetheless, we do go back to Falcon, and he is just, man, it's so cool because he's throwing the shield. So he's like ready. He's like finally ready to take on Captain America and be the new Captain America. Like, all it took was John Walker to mess up, and now we got the shield back. And I think seeing the blood on the shield really like transformed Sam to be like, oh, I stand for more than that. And he's like, I am ready. And his talk with Isaiah really inspires him. And they're like, the world isn't ready for a black Captain America. And Sam has a moment where he's on the boat, and he says, like, for the longest time I always thought, like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to change the world. And he's like, then I realized that that's not how it works. Which is interesting because it kind of seems like that is what he's doing with Captain America, but I think he's doing it for the right reasons. Bucky brings over a case, and it's like a new like crazy case. Another thing I didn't touch on, when Winter Soldier and Falcon and John Walker are fighting in the beginning, John actually rips his wings off. Like, he's on the ground, and he literally rips and breaks the wings. So the intelligence, the army like agent that was working with Sam at the beginning, the first pilot episode, where he's like on his phone and stuff, he comes back and he's like, oh, what happened to these wings? And he's like, don't worry about it. And he gives him some intel on the Flag Smashers and where they might be. Eventually they're like, yo, it's been all over Europe where they've been like using these signals. And he's like, this one's in New York. And he's like, I know that they could be using a VPN, but he's like, it doesn't look likely. And there's like breaking news where things are happening on the news. Sam's like, thank you. But he actually tells him way back in that first scene, he says, he's like, oh, you forgot the wings. And he's like, keep them. So it's like literally Falcon is retiring the wings. And he's like, I'm not Falcon anymore. He's like, I'm ready to be Captain America. And so we know that suitcase, we know that is the new Captain America suit. We'll get to that in just a second. And so Sam is back in his like front yard or whatever. And it's so cool because he's like throwing the shield, and sometimes it misses the tree, or sometimes it hits the tree, and he's like trying to catch it, but it's way too fast. So he like pulls his hand back. And then like he's like having a hard time catching it at first, and he's had no training with it, so it makes sense. But then eventually he's like in the hang of it, and he's doing flips around, and he's like getting closer, and he's getting more confident. It's like such a cool sequence where he's just like throwing it constantly off the trees and catching it, and like doing a flip and throwing it, and His accuracy is getting better, and it's just awesome. And it's like, dude, seeing Anthony Mackie as Captain America is going to be dope. Before we end that, though, we do check it out briefly in with Carly. They go back to like the place that they grew up in or whatever Sam and Bucky went last episode, I think. It's been like excavated or renovated or evacuated. I don't know, one of those words. And basically they're like, she's like, the movement is ready. It's time to strike now. She's like, how many lives need to be lost for us to like make a difference or whatever. And so that's when they go to New York, and then she sends out like a signal. She sees like all these little signals around. I think these are all like followers of the movements of people. So she's in like Central Park or whatever, and she presses a button, and they go from yellow to red. And then she makes like a signal, like a whistle signal, and all these people come over to Carly. So whether she's like brain controlling them, or whether this just says like, hey, these are all the people willing to follow you, and then they're kind of acting their normal lives, and then Carly's like sends a signal, be like, yo, it's time. Which I think is probably what's happening. They all show up there, and then that's when the breaking news happens. And then we end the episode, guys, with sorry, one more thing. I don't want to forget. They do fix the boat, and it looks like it's ready to go, and it's finally like gonna run. And then Sam is like, he's just about to paint over the parents' names on the front, and she's like, wait. She's like, we can't sell this boat. And he's like, I'm so glad you said that. He's like, this is our history. He's like, what I've learned is that, I want to win every battle, but he's like, I can't do that. So he's like, I'm cool with losing some battles, but he's like, this battle right here, he's like, our history, our people, he's like, I can't lose this battle. We can't lose this battle. He's like, this is who we are. And so obviously that was speaking as like a collective to, I think, like Black people in general. But that ship especially is like their family history. And he's like, Sarah, we can't sell this. Like, this is us. So, that was really cool, but sorry guys, I'm kind of all over the place here, but at the very end of the episode, he opens the briefcase, and it looks really cool, and I knew we weren't going to get a shot of it, but it's obviously a new Captain America suit, because he was training right before that, and he's like, he opens it up, and he takes a deep breath, and he looks down at it, and dude, I have no idea what this is going to look like, but if you're going to give me like a black and a blue Captain America suit, oh my god, it's going to look so cool, dude. Because we have like this classic design, and like Steve rocked that outfit. Steve looks so cool, and John Walker's suit was a different, even though John didn't really fit that role. It was still a pretty cool suit. But dude, I'm so excited for Anthony Mackie's suit, because I think it's just gonna be a sick. Like, I hope it's like a dope redesigned suit. Like probably hopefully something we've never seen. I'm sure it's gonna be based on some sort of comic, but super excited, because like as he's opening it, they didn't show it, and I was like, I wanted them to show it, but I understand why they didn't, because now I'm like so ready for the finale, because I'm like, I want to see him just kick ass as Captain America in his new suit. The Anthony Mackie Cap era is going to begin. It's going to be sick. So yeah, that's how the episode ends. Okay, guys, so for a score for this one, I really like this episode. So this episode had almost no action. We had the opening fight scene with John Walker, Falcon, the last battle was Falcon, and Bucky. And that might have been Bucky's last battle too. So that was kind of like the changing the guard there. But other than that, we had like all like really emotional moments. And one thing I also didn't touch on here is that John Walker actually goes to see Lamar's parents, and he like kind of tells them the news that their son is dead. And he's like, I just want to let you know, John Walker lies to them. He says, I want to let you know that the person who kills your son, like, I killed him. He's like, I made sure that he paid the price. And the father's like, okay, so you're sure that that's the one who killed my boy? And he's like, absolutely. And they're like, okay, good. And he's like, I hope you can find peace with that. And then they're like, the mom tells him, like, Lamar was so proud of you when you became Captain America, and he was so proud to like work alongside you. He told me every day. And it's super sad, dude. And it's another emotional point where it's like, man, poor John. I don't want to say poor John Walker, because he let the power get to him, but this was an emotional moment too, where I didn't think I would have any sympathy for John, but he goes there, and he is upset about Lamar. He did know Lamar, and there's like an old picture of them in the army, and she gives him like a picture after their first trip, and so it's crazy, because like John is, man, things fell apart for him so quickly. But that's what happens when you lose power. But that was another emotional moment I just wanted to touch on. But yeah, like I said, the music, this felt like it hit on all the emotional beats. It felt like the first 4 episodes were like action heavy, and this one was like, we're gonna pay off emotional A, B, C, D. Like we're gonna hit all these notes. And so yeah, when they're working on the boat, they're talking to all the people. A bunch of the people in the town like come and help out with the boat. So Sam was like, "Wow, I can't believe this! You guys are awesome!" And so that's a really nice like community experience there. Bucky and him getting along, and it's just great. I just really loved the music. The shots were great, and just all of the emotional points, and just having that serious conversation with Isaiah and Sam like letting him know he's listening to every word, and like letting them know like that Steve Rogers was a white male who had blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was the Captain America. And like this Anthony Mackie is going to redefine what Captain America is, but he has the heroism, he has the courage, and it's like I can't wait because Isaiah. It'll be interesting to see. I hope they like cut to Isaiah or something when Anthony Mackie like shows up as Captain America, because like he says, he's like, the world is not ready for a black Captain America, and he's like, even if they were, nobody would want to do that. And so Anthony Mackie is ready to prove him wrong, or Sam's ready to prove him wrong. So I'm so excited to see, like, I hope they touch back on that and see like, well, I'll be like just some sort of like form of approval there. So with that being said, for a score for this one, I have to give it a 9.6. It's really good. I love that they touched on all those moments, and again, this show is not afraid to address the Black Lives Matter stuff, address the struggles. I think Isaiah says in here, like, they've been putting us down for 500 years or something, or he said, like, they didn't want the story of me to get out, so they erased me, and he's like, my name is dead. And it's just like those stories continue to be told, and they touch on real life issues that we're having every day today, with the way the world is going right now. And it's crazy that they, like, yes, it's a superhero TV series, and yes, it's fake, and yes, there's super serum and there's action stuff, but a lot of it is based on reality, and it's it's real stuff. And so to hit on that, to hit on the emotional notes, to get John kind of his comeuppance, we knew he was pretty much done as Captain America there. The Anthony Mackie training scene where he's throwing the shield was incredible. I cannot wait. It got me really hyped for next week, so can't wait to see him. But yeah, just a phenomenal episode overall. All right, guys. Well, that's it for episode 5 of On Your Left. That's another episode. We got one more left, guys. So the finale is next week. We're going to see the new Captain America. I cannot wait. I hope we start off the episode with that. I can't wait to see the suit. I hope it looks sick. I'm sure it's going to look awesome. But just to see someone else other than John Walker, who really kind of look like Steve Rogers, at least physically. So to see, we've never seen a black Captain America, at least not in live action. So that's going to be sick. Like, just to see a different, like, to see Anthony Mackie in the Cap suit is going to be crazy. And I hope it's not the original Cap suit. I hope it's a new era Cap. And yeah, I would love, I'm so excited to see, like, for future, like, Avengers movies or whatever, MCU movies. I love the idea of, like, Anthony Mackie coming in as Cap. And it's like, oh, yes, dude. And he's proven that he's ready. And he wasn't ready at the beginning. That's why he turned in the shield. Now he's got the shield back. And he's like, oh, I made a mistake. I'm ready. I learned from it. And I'm just ready for him to wreck shop. So, but yeah, thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. Thanks for checking out On Your Left. Like I said, we'll be here for the finale next week. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. And until next time, guys, On Your Left.